Henry Morton Blackbeard, Francis Drake, and Bonnie Redbeard. Names that still today smell of gunpowder, saltpeter, and blood are the icons of a much older phenomenon. Because piracy wasn't born in the Caribbean, it was born when the first ship loaded with riches crossed a lawless sea. And that's where this story begins. We're returning to the 14th century. The loot was trade, the wool routes from Castile to Flanders. Slow ships sailing without protection, and everyone was looking at the same thing, all attacking the same routes, all seeking the same prize. Castile was not an adventure. It was a war without flags, and the peninsula was at the center. Until a king said enough. Henry III, nicknamed the Sufferer, understood that this was a war against the nerve of his kingdom, and to lead the hunt, he chose a man of honor. A nobleman born in Valladolid in 1378 from an ancient but declining lineage. His name was Peroniño, Count of Buelna, Admiral of Castile. Can you go play, Manzo? His destiny was sealed from the cradle. His mother had been the nurse of the crown prince, forging a bond of milk and blood between the future king and the future admiral.
That elm is too far away, but it's impossible for you to hit it. Wait and watch that elm, Prince.
At only 12 years old and riding a Percheron at a trot, he stuck 12 darts into a 100-year-old elm, one after another. His weapon skills were already showing. He was a prodigy of nature. By the age of 15, he was already an accomplished swordsman. He led the vanguard in the siege against Count Noriña, fought against the rebellious nobles, and battled in the war against John I of Portugal. This humble man of formidable nature. I'm writing this because he wants it to be known in a time when no one thinks about the future. He wants his story to survive death. But even heroes bleed. In 1399, he married Constanza de Guevara. 5 years later, she died, and shortly after, his only son also passed away. He left behind an empty house and an unbearable silence. It was then that the king gave him an order that was actually a salvation. Leave your pain on land. My friend, the sea awaits you. Build your fame where no one can follow you. At just 25 years old in 1403, the king equipped his new hunter with the best ships in the kingdom and a crew paid by the crown. But there was a problem. The young boy had no idea about ships, oceans, or pirates. I provide the sword of the King of Castile. You set the course. He had the humility to turn to two experienced officers, the civilian Juan Bueno and the Genoese Nicoloso Bonel. With them, he left Seville in 1404, commanding 2 galleys and a nau to patrol the Mediterranean. Their first catch was the famous corsairs Juan de Castrillo and Arnau Aymar.
We can't touch it, sir. They have the protection of Pope Benedict XIII. It makes no difference to me. They're pirates, enemies of the crown and of our king.
After nearly causing an international conflict with the church, Nino had to give up, but his thirst for blood was not yet satisfied. Informed that the king of Tunis was arming privateer ships, he decided to launch a surprise attack on their impregnable port. Soon they spotted the enemy royal ship, which tried to escape through an inland channel. Nino chased it until it was within ramming distance.
Ready for the assault.
Just at the moment of impact, Nino jumped onto the enemy deck, armed and ready. But the blow was so violent that his ship bounced back, instantly moving away and leaving his soldiers on the galley. He was left alone, surrounded by enemies on a hostile ship. When his men finally boarded, they found their captain alive and the royal ship ready to be plundered and burned. That day, the crew learned a lesson. Their admiral didn't give orders from the rear. In September 1404, Niño returned to Cartagena to distribute the loot.
Should we request Peroniño's services again?
But King Enrique III didn't want his admiral to rest. He had another challenge for him. The English, haughty and arrogant, kept harassing the Castilian coasts. The king decided it was time to give them a shock treatment. Leave the south, Peron, go north. Show them that the sea belongs to Castile. In Santander, he assembled his new war fleet, 3 fast ships manned by dozens of sailors, crossbowmen, and Cantabrian soldiers, tough men for a tough sea. His new base of operations, La Rochelle in France. His first strike was a direct hit to the jaw. He decided to attack Bordeaux, English territory, sailing up the Hurrah River. The English panicked. They thought those 3 ships were just the vanguard of a larger fleet. They fled in terror up the river, leaving the city at his mercy.
Plunder as much as you can and burn everything, just as they did.
They looted and burned everything freely. They had achieved their goal, to spread terror. Hastings, Dartmouth, Poole. One by one, the English ports began to burn. The English army, powerless, could not stop the raids. The King of England had to order the creation of civilian militias to defend their homes. The irony was delicious. The English, fond of taking what wasn't theirs since time immemorial, were astonished. They were greatly surprised that someone, in the year 1405, would dare to challenge their claim to their only art, piracy. No one expected a Castilian sailor to be bold enough to frighten an entire country. But Niño had only just begun, King of England, Poole. But it wasn't enough. Niño longed to go for London. Maybe in his mind he wanted to emulate the legendary Fernando Sanchez de Tobar, who years earlier had sailed up the Thames.
Take me to its capital, London. I want the King of England to see the smoke from his window.
The French sailors, terrified, decided to deceive him.
Look, Admiral, there it is, London.
They took him to Southampton, swearing it was the capital. Maybe he never found out about the deception, or maybe he just didn't care.
Whether it's London or hell, we will attack.
They spent months raiding England, some with better luck than others. After wintering in Harfleur and not receiving any pay, the admiral decided to make one last move, to attack the island of Jersey. This time, it wasn't a skirmish. A combined force of 1,500 men, including Castilians and Bretons, faced more than 4,000 Englishmen defending the island. Against all odds, he won after capturing the English royal banner. He imposed an annual tribute on the island and obtained a colossal loot of 10,000 gold crowns. The pirate hunter returned home with the holds full, and the name of Castile feared throughout the north. At the height of his fame, he received a letter. Enrique III summoned him to the court. The pirate hunter, terror of England, hung up his trident, and the king finally knighted him. And then she appeared. Her name was Beatrice, from Portugal, a beautiful woman who changed the life of this seasoned sailor. It was a classic courtship of incredible romance. He embraced her with body and soul.
I have conquered seas and cities, Beatrice. But nothing is worth as much as this moment.
But fate rarely forgives those who have known too much happiness. Beatrice, she died shortly after, and with her, Peroniño's world collapsed. The man who had made the English and pirates tremble was left broken inside. He had titles, honors, and prestige, but for the second time, he had lost his soulmate. And to make matters worse, he had no heir to continue his lineage. He tried again with the very young Juana de Zúñiga. He respected her, but he no longer dared to love again. Juana devoted herself to him, but she was never able to get pregnant. The man who was the terror of the seas was missing out on the sweetest thing: a child, a descendant, an heir. In 1453, probably bedridden by a deep depression, he died in Chagales, Valladolid. He didn't leave behind a son to carry his name, but he left something stronger. He left a story that would be remembered until the end of time. The legend of the admiral who was never defeated by the sea, but by life. This was the story of Peroniño Lasso, Admiral of Castile.